For a great cup of joe, there's one thing you should know. Your morning brew can also be playful. Buff Boy Brewing guys make the temperature rise, and you surely feel naughty when you swallow our coffee. If you want some real heat, give your mouth a fine treat. You will want some more, rest assured. Buff Boy Brewing, you can't get enough of.
It's time for The Scribble, your weekly fix of celebrity chats, bizarre stories in the news, and basic random chatter with best-selling author and syndicated radio host Jeremy Bradley. Make sure your seat is in the upright and locked position and your barf bag is securely in place. Here's Jeremy Bradley.
Thank you very much, Larson. Jeremy Bradley here. This is The Scribble. Thanks for tuning in on your favorite podcast app and Spotify. How's it going today? Oh, dear. You know what? This week, it's a show of Joes this week. I'll tell you what I mean by that. Of course, Joe Rogan, I have to comment on, so I'll talk about that in our first segment. And then in the second or the third segment, whatever the hell it is, you know that show Joe Millionaire is back on Fox? Well, I have both Joes joining me. Kurt and Steven will be joining me about halfway through the show and talking about love. Now, I have my suspicions that they end up together, and we've pre-taped the interview, so I'm going to just point out some key things. That one of them likes fashion, we're comfortable in our own skin and who we are, and they just got back from a trip together and had some fun. And let's also listen to how one of them speaks for the other right at the beginning of the interview. See, I'm already giving you spoilers of my own interview. Yeah, so I talked with the Joes earlier in the week. Now, this Joe Rogan thing, I mean, it's got everybody up in arms, right? You're either Team Joe, because he's just got that big of an audience, or you're Team Not Joe. I've got my thoughts on the Spotify Joe Rogan podcast drama right after this.
Who are the Kardashians feuding with now? What did that little thug Justin Bieber do this time? Who's getting hitched? And who's headed for Splitsville? Hear the latest celebrity news and gossip every day on Entertainment Wrap-Up. The good, the bad, the ugly, but mostly the ridiculously hilarious. It's all recapped in this daily segment at entertainmentwrapup.com. Have a laugh at the expense of the rich and famous when they take themselves way too seriously. It's 3 minutes of time-wasting fun at entertainmentwrapup.com. Check out Entertainment Wrap-Up at entertainmentwrapup.com. Brought to you by Speak Free Books.
JB here, back on The Scribble. All right, so you know this whole Joe Rogan controversy about the corona stuff, and is he anti-vax? You know, he got it, and so does that change his opinion now because he was infected? Is he still going to... So much, and then we've heard about the music artists who have pulled their music off the streaming service, right? Neil Young, Joni Mitchell, all of the people, this is quite honestly, most of the people who don't listen to Joe's podcast, right? I'm talking about the younger generation. I mean, hey, with all due respect to those music artists, they are legends in the business. Absolutely, I'm not taking that away from them. But I mean, the reality is, they're no Lady Gaga, they're not Drake, they're no Rihanna. They're you know. So yes, I appreciate that they're taking a stand and saying, look, I don't want my music associated with this. But at the end of the day, it's like, move over, Neil Young. You're not Justin Bieber. Not even close. At least by today's audience views and opinion, right? That's what I mean. Love his music. Neil Young is from my hometown of Winnipeg. I got nothing bad to say about the guy. I'm just saying that, you know, I don't know that your point has as much clout as it would have maybe 40 years ago in the music business. And that's not a slam against him. Hey, he is still a legend. If they called me up and said, you know what, Neil wants to do your radio show, I would make myself available anytime. I'm not saying he's about... What I'm just saying, though, is that, you know, he's making a statement, and it's true. You could say that, well, Spotify market value dropped by $2 billion when all of this played out the other week. Sure, I get it. But I think also, too, it's the bigger picture as to what is happening on this platform. I don't know that it's necessarily the influence of Young pulling out, but, you know, that's the deal. So now there's this montage, you've probably already seen it and heard it, of Rogan using the N-word on his podcast. And that's the thing about all of these archives and it's also on video, right? His podcast is a video stream as well. And, you know, you're seeing him just clip of using the word. And his argument was, well, if you're using it in context, and listen, I was a journalism major. I went through school. I had that same opinion where it was kind of like, if I'm using it in context, if I'm quoting somebody else's words, or I'm saying the name of a title of a book, or I'm quoting music lyrics or something, I always thought, well, this is this is news. I'm allowed to say the word. And now there's a part of me that still feels I should be able to. I'm one of those people. I don't feel that just because I am gay, that doesn't mean that I can. Only I'm allowed to go around calling guys fags. Only I can because I'm gay. To me, it's fair game. It's fair use. If one person or group is allowed to say it, they all should. Now, I realize, though, with this N-word, there is a historical hurt. There's absolutely, and I get it. I'm not downplaying the way that it triggers some people. I get it. I get it. And that's where we end up having these lines drawn where it's kind of like, well, you're not black, so you wouldn't understand. You don't think that as a gay person you could hear any kind of, you weren't called a cocksucker and blah, 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 all these. And those were hurtful to people when you're growing up as a kid, before you're out, all those things like that. Is it okay now that I'm an adult and I'm comfortable with who I am? Is it okay for me now to go and call, silly fag, whatever? That's not for me to say, though. Do you know what I mean? Like, yes, we're in a snowflake world where there's Karens who want to talk to your manager and blah, 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 blah. So anyway, so Joe, I understand Joe's point. I'm not saying that he's right for doing it, but I get what he's saying, is that if you're saying it in context, if you're quoting somebody, Barbara Walters, of all people, you probably don't remember this clip, but Barbara Walters on The View had said the word, and it was Sherry Shepherd who said, I don't like when you say it. I'm okay with hearing Whoopi say it. Well, look at where's Whoopi now. But, I don't like hearing Barbara Walters. Yes, you're a newswoman. You're respected. I know that you're not calling me that, whatever. It triggers me when I hear you say the word. And Barbara never really understood that in that moment. And so I get it. It's sort of like, if you're saying it in a news context, it's okay. If I'm coming out and saying, Sherry Shepherd, you are a blank, totally different story, in my opinion, right? Now, let me finish this statement by saying, do I use the word? Do I say it? I honestly don't even know that I've ever even said it in my life. I remember years ago on an episode of Family Matters, the word was spray painted on a locker at the school, and I remember seeing the word, and I didn't know it because, I was so young, but I remember my mom saying, my mom was a teacher too at the time, saying, never say that. And that was just kind of the end of it. There wasn't even discussion. There wasn't even conversation. It was just, okay, all right, I got it. And as far as I can recall, I have never, even as a teenager, even when you're joking with friends and you say, I don't ever recall saying it. So, like I said, I understand the point that Joe is trying to make now. Now, maybe that's just a good cover because you've been called out and people are outraged. But I understand because others have had that same one. And like I said, on The View, it was talked about probably, 15 years ago or so when Barbara Walters wasn't fossilized. I don't even know where she is now. We haven't even heard from her lately, have we? So anyway, so now this whole thing about the N-word, Spotify goes and says, hey, look, we don't condone the use of that word. It's terrible. Our reputation is on the line, but it's freedom of speech and whatever. So I kind of wonder, though, that they go and remove a bunch of the episodes where he's got either fake coronavirus information or this word, but they're saying that, it's not the right thing to silence him. Well, in a way, you are on certain issues and subjects. So you are silencing him on the coronavirus thing, on the N-word thing, but just not entirely. So to me, I find that to be a contradiction. It's either free speech across the board for anything that he says, or he is silenced altogether. Like, how that's where it's sort of like you're picking and choosing your battles then. How is one thing not as hurtful as the other? So this one's okay to hurt, but this one's not okay to hurt. Look at it. The corona thing was that potentially costing people lives at the end of the day. There was so much controversy, so much back and forth debate. Now, and the argument is also made, I think it's also made on The View, like, would I get my news and my health and my medical information from some podcaster who smokes weed as he's sitting and talking to friends? I wouldn't, but that's just me. I'm 39 years old. I also don't completely distrust the media. I don't I view that some of their things might be questionable that they report, and I can see the bias and the angles that they take now with news reporting. Would I have been able to see that or recognize that 10 or 15 years ago? Probably not, but having gone through school, worked in the business, I can tell when it's happening, right? So it's interesting how you have this whole thing about not trusting the media, but then people will go to sources like that and go, oh yeah, I'm all in. Yeah, Joe Rogan says it, I'm good. And I'm sitting there thinking, what are his credentials? Like, what makes him qualified to talk about this kind of stuff and take that stance? People go and say, well, Jeremy, you're a newspaper columnist. You're giving your opinion and but I'm not telling people what to do. I've always said, if it's about vaccines or whatever, it's like, do your own research, make your own informed choice. I've made that choice when people, mostly friends, have come to me, maybe even coworkers in the past, have come to me for advice, or, if there's relationship trouble. I have never, ever, ever said, you should do this. For me, the word should, I've always hated that word. Anytime, usually my mom, anytime somebody has said, you should do this, I tune out right away. I almost want to do the opposite. It's like, you're not telling me what to do. That's not how my life works. You don't tell me what to do, And so I always will ask people questions. I will make them think about things different ways. I will make them sort of take that step back and realize the situation. That is what I do. So in terms of me telling people or giving advice, whatever, no. I put all the questions out there. You do the thinking. You do the research. You do whatever. That's on you. And I also did have a friend who was very quick to go and blame people, like if something went wrong, that, well, you told me to. No. See, and then that's how I can actually rebut that. I can go and say, now, if you recall, I said that I've never told people what to do. Never. Even if somebody comes at me and says, what should I do? What should I do? Well, what would you like to happen in this? See, like, I don't do it. I really don't. So. Anyway, I'd love to know your thoughts on this Joe Rogan thing. Spotify, obviously, he's the big name in podcasting there. $100 million contract, I think, is the deal. And so, that would be a huge loss for them, because I'm assuming they would end up having to pay him out anyway. But from a business perspective, I mean, your market value is dropping. It's just going to be scandal after scandal, because we all know cancel culture right now. We know what's going to be happening is people are going to be scouring his episodes. They're going to be just listening to every episode of that podcast and pulling together clips and montages and all this stuff just to bring him back. That's going to happen. That's people right now, as I'm talking to you on Friday morning, I guarantee you there's somebody doing that. It wouldn't surprise me. I don't follow the statistics of downloads and crap like that. It wouldn't surprise me if he's seeing a spike in downloads all of a sudden, but thanks in part to people trying to nab him, trying to grab him on the next controversy, the next scandal, the next drama, the next takedown attempt. I totally see it happening. So send me your thoughts live at jbonair.com, live at jbonair.com. I'm coming right back with the Joes from Joe Millionaire on Fox.
It's never too early to start thinking about your next holiday. Have you checked out Mexico recently? From tequila tasting, swimming with horses, to ziplining through the jungle and watching whales and dolphins in their natural habitat, Puerto Vallarta has it all. Visit mexico.jbonair.com to see all the fun PV has to offer. That's at mexico.jbonair.com for hundreds of photos, interviews, and videos from around the tourist hotspot. Check out mexico.jbonair.com for all the fun. That's mexico.jbonair.com.
Isn't it crazy that you wait for payday, but before you know it, you're strapped for cash again? It's time to stop blowing your money and become a smart spender with the book, The Official Guide to Being an American Cheapskate, at cheapskatebook.com. Learn simple ways to cut costs at home every day and during special times of the year. Don't go broke at Christmas. Don't remortgage the house for a fancy vacation. The book is filled with tips to save you money throughout the year. Check out the best-selling book, The Official Guide to Being an American Cheapskate, at cheapskatebook.com or on Amazon and iTunes.
Who is rich and who's not quite as rich? That's the question on Joe Millionaire. The reality dating show is back on Fox, and we have both Joes on the line with us now, Kurt and Steven. Hey, guys.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. How are you guys?
Doing well. Just got back from a Nashville trip with Kurt. We had some fun, and now getting back in the office and trying to get caught up.
Yeah, today has been a day already, man, let me tell you.
Well, last June we did 15-year anniversary on the radio in Nashville, and Music City, that was probably one of the best trips that we've ever done. So yeah, it's a good time there, for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, all about it, yeah.
So, the twist this season is that one of you is rich and the other... See, the way they make it sound is one of you is poor, but Kurt, let's clear that up. Are you broke? You're a business owner. You're doing okay.
I'm not broke. I'm maybe asset poor. I've got good cash flow. I run a construction company. It's a rather new though. So I've only been in business for myself 2 years. So everything I make gets reinvested back into the company.
Oh, absolutely. And so many people are considering entrepreneurialism now that we get it. People get it. So the premise of this show is, the group of women comes on. They're told one of you is rich, one of you isn't. You go on dates. It's similar to, those other shows, but you obviously guys have had success in your professional life, if I can say that without the Bachelor audience hating me. The gist of the show, we're going to get letters. The gist of the show, though, you're both dating the same group of women, trying to have connections based on personality. All the while, we assume the women are wondering who's got the cash. So, Stephen, let me ask you, though, outside of this show, do you wine and dine and do the big lavish things on a date? It seems like you prefer sort of maybe a low-key, casual kind of relationship and not the big, flashy whirlwind dates. I could be wrong. Tell me, what is dating Stephen like in real life?
Yeah, no, you're right on the money there. It's funny during the show because, I'm honestly, obviously the wealthy one in this situation, but as far as how I go about my day-to-day life, I'm very blue-collar, and I guess you could say I'm very sheltered from the high-class status or high-class lifestyle, besides some of the things that I own material-wise, but, as far as getting dressed up in a tuxedo, I don't know how to tie a tie. Kurt had to tie my tie, had to tie my bow tie. He was teaching me about, wine and what all, entails in the wine. Being a wino, I had no idea. That was my first time having wine or champagne or being to a vineyard. And so, I'm pretty blue collar when it comes down to day-to-day living and dating.
I'd say you're even worse than blue collar when it comes to the finer things in life. What's funny, I probably enjoy the nicer things that Steven does. And maybe it's just because in the town I'm in, everyone's just trying to keep up.
Well, yeah, I have to tell you, watching the show, though, seeing the drama, the tears, the fighting, it really made me think, I'm so glad I married a guy. I don't know how you guys can handle the drama. There's somebody coming at you and crying and then, telling on this person and tattletaling on that.
Yeah.
I mean, is it weird now seeing the behind-the-scenes stuff play out that maybe you weren't aware of when you were taping? Kurt, what was the most surprising for you?
Yeah, it is funny to watch back. And I will say, thank goodness I had Steven there so that we could, have a little bit of that bromance or just that camaraderie. It made dating these women that much easier because it was taxing, trying to date 18 women and all the emotions that come with it. They made me feel things I didn't think that I would, and that is on the emotional side too. You saw me, get a little emotional on one episode. So, yeah. Go ahead,
it was an experience. I definitely am so thankful that Kurt was there because there'd be nights where we were so exhausted from just the emotional, roller coaster we'd go on during these dates and just being, basically blindsided with questions left and right from these women. They're trying to vie for your attention. And so whenever they get an opportunity, man, they're jumping in and they're asking you as many deep questions as you can possibly answer. You're just trying to keep up with conversations. And by the end of the night, sometimes the producers would ask, hey, do you guys want to go down to the mansion and finish the night off hanging with the women? And we'd be like, nope. Let's go back to the guest house. We just need to chill out, just bro out a little bit, and just try to relax for a little bit before we go into the next day.
Yeah, I'll say it's funny, Steve and I both were business owners, right? We field questions all day from people we work with, people that are working for us. And I'd say we probably handle it very well. But a day of fielding questions from these women was exhausting. I remember just being brain dead at the end of some of these.
It really was.
So when you're cast on a show like this, though, I have to know, are you asked about the kind of woman that you like? I mean, do you say, I like educated, I like career-minded, I like faith-based, or just bring me whatever? I mean, what input do you have on the casting? Kurt, did you give them a checklist of qualities? How does it work?
They didn't really ask. I think just through interviews, they were kind of wanting to play matchmaker. And I was okay with that. I'm single, so maybe I haven't been the best at choosing a partner for myself before this show, So I think that they were kind of trying to play matchmaker there just based off my personality and questions I answered to them. So I think they did a pretty good job, and it was nice to, maybe meet some different women or go after some women that I might not ordinarily go after.
And for as much as the women are trying to impress you, I imagine there's also competition when there's the two guys on the show, right? I mean, there's that conversation, what happens if we both like the same person? So take me into that conversation that you guys must have had.
Yeah, there at the end, especially, as we were dwindling down and starting to feel true connections and true emotions towards these women, there are a few that we were both falling for. And, thankfully we had a good enough friendship, still to this day, that we were able to be open, honest, and really communicate that to each other. And so there wasn't any hidden agendas or anything. We just laid it out on the table like, hey, we both like this woman, I guess let's just see where the cards fall and see where things land. And if she likes one or both of us back, we'll just play it by ear.
Yep.
Was there any ever maybe insecurity at some point where you were trying to outdo each other?
Maybe we had a little friendly competition, but I don't think there were many insecurities that played out between Steven and I, at least.
Yeah, we're pretty confident in who we are, and we know who we are as men, and I think as similar as we are in some ways, and we're very different in others. I mean, as far as Kurt is knows all about fashion. I don't know the first thing about fashion. And, obviously we have different career paths. And so we're comfortable in our own skin and who we are. And so I don't think any insecurities really came out, but definitely some friendly competition.
Yeah.
See, the way you guys word that, viewers are liking the connection that you two have. I tweeted at both of you the other week, and I said the twist at the end would be that you two end up together. You're quite buddy-buddy. Not unreasonable. Hey, it's sweeps time and it's Fox, so it's not unreasonable. But you guys have a formed friendship. I mean, did you expect that to happen on this show?
I don't think I expected it to happen as it did. I was hopeful that I would like the guy. I knew going into it that there would be two of us. I was a little bit concerned of that because I knew we were going to be from a little bit different walks of life or background, or I thought we would be from different walks of life. And so was a bit concerned, didn't know if we would get along, if we would, see the world through the same lens. And it turns out, we do. So that was not anticipated, but I'm grateful for it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I also suspect that Jeeves, the butler's name. What was the butler?
Martin.
Right. He was.
Where's Jeeves from? What?
Oh, we're gonna get letters about that one too. The Bachelor community, the Butler community, everybody's gonna write in. But I suspect he was kind of circling and making a play at some of the women. His little blinding headlight, the whole shoe thing with Brianna. I mean, was he on the make? What's the deal with this guy? Was he after your girls?
Yeah, Martin. Yeah, Martin, we talked about it multiple times. Martin, and they don't even show it, on the cut. A lot of the times, these one-liners that Martin had, he was so funny and he was so off the cuff that, there was some times where Kurt and I were like, man, these women may end up choosing Martin in the end. What's going on here?
That's the twist at the end, is Martin gets the girl.
Right.
There you go. How devastating for you two. But anyway, we're going to be watching Joe Millionaire is back on Fox. Kurt, when can we catch the show?
On Thursdays, 8-7.
All right, everybody, check your local listings. Well, thanks for joining us. The Joes from Joe Millionaire. Great chatting with you, Stephen and Kurt.
Yeah, likewise. Appreciate it.
Ever had something to get off your chest but never had the balls to say it? That's a load of crap. Speak Free with JB.com is exactly what you've been waiting for. Your chance to tell it like it is and not care what anybody else thinks. Have your say on issues of the day. Join newspaper and radio columnist Jeremy Bradley as he tells it like it is. Hundreds of thousands of people have stopped by, including some well-known celebrities who have had a chat with JB and speak candidly about what's really going on in the world. You can join them too. Have a rant or a rave. Be brave and head on over to www.speakfreewithjb.com now.
We hear you chirping. Get scribbling. Tweet up the Scribble at The Scribble Show. Join the discussion with Jeremy Bradley. It's all going down right now on Twitter at The Scribble Show and at thescribbleshow.com.
Jeremy Bradley here, back on The Scribble. Just listening to that interview, I'm sitting here thinking, Maybe it should be rebranded as Mo Millionaire this season. Anyway, great guys. But so, like I said at the top of the show, I mean, I'm kind of getting the homo vibe from them. And remember, as a fag myself, I'm allowed to say that. But no, hey, you know what? They're very good looking guys. It seems like they have a genuine connection. So if that is actually the twist, and I don't know, I'm sure there's a spoiler website out there that already talks about what happens on the final episode. I like to watch with the people. I absolutely, the networks will often send us a season premiere, sometimes a season finale ahead of time to watch. Like in the broadcast world, the media, they'll send reporters. Because, especially with The Bachelor, Bachelorette, like any show they want to hype up, they'll send it to us so that we can promote it and then get people to tune in, right? We'll influence them, because that's what we do. We're influencers, just like Joe Rogan on your coronavirus information. And so sometimes there are episodes available. I will pick and choose which ones I will watch. Sometimes if The Bachelor or Bachelorette is really hyped up, then I will watch it a couple weeks before it airs. I'll actually watch it twice. I'll watch it the first time and just make notes, like just reactionary notes, and just type everything that I'm thinking of as I hear it, as I'm seeing it. And then I'll watch it a second time with no distractions, so no notepad, no computer, no phone, nothing like that, and just watch it as a TV show. And then I'll go back to my notes and go, okay, yeah, I was right on. And then there's other times where if it's not quite so hyped up and there isn't this big hubbub about, the new season is starting, like these past couple of seasons on The Bachelor, Bachelorette, I'll watch it with the people. I'll watch at the same time as all of you and just give my reactions in that moment and live tweet it, and that's more fun. So with Joe Millionaire, I haven't seen any of the other episodes, so I don't know if these two guys end up together at the end. But like I said, why not? It's kind of cute. They go on the show to meet women, and truthfully, I mean, like I said in the segment with them, watching all the drama and the crying and the tears and the neediness, I'm just thinking, oh my God, I'm so happy that I have a nice, butch, manly, masculine guy we don't go through any of that stuff. But am I a heterophobe? Is that a word? I don't even know. But anyway, so if you're watching Joe Millionaire, definitely send me an email, live@jbonair.com, or tweet me at Jeremy D. Bradley. It's an interesting show. Like I said, the concept last time was, the guy was pretending to be rich, and then all of a sudden all these women were devastated. So I can understand the point of lying and deceiving, because that's sort of catfishy in a way. I mean, he's not exactly who he's being portrayed as. Now, the argument would be you're going on the show to meet the guy for the guy. That's the excuse we always see on Catfish, right? When somebody gets busted, it's like, well, but I'm really, the person that I was at. Well, you kind of had a fake name, fake picture, fake job, fake income. Not exactly who you portrayed yourself to be. So, in this instance, at least they know that one of them has a shit ton of money and the other's not. But I think it would be, I think that's a really good twist if they end up being together, these two guys. And they just seem like they're cute together. I got to tell you, here's what you don't hear or see when we're doing those interviews, like you just said, or like you just heard. As I said earlier, we taped that earlier in the week, so it wasn't live. It wasn't live on the radio either. But before we're on, quote unquote on, before we're on, there's the chit chat, there's the banter, and so for these guys who just got back from a vacation together or some kind of a trip together, it was the interaction between the two of them before we were rolling, and I was kind of like, yeah, it seems very nice. That's not to say that two straight guys can't be friendly and just, be buds. I don't know. And then the way they were interacting with the publicist. Okay, I can't see. That's the tough thing. I can't give you all the behind the scenes crap that goes on because I'm still in the business. So I think that when I'm done with this whole broadcasting deal, and I want to ruin my career and go to Spotify. No. When I'm done the whole broadcasting thing, that's when I'll have that tell-all book that'll give you all these juicy details of what really happens. Because when we do the interviews, so what you just heard now was 10 or 11 minutes, however long it was. The call was actually 15 because we have the icebreaker, the pleasantries, oh, hey, how's it going? Oh, yeah, great. Yeah, where are you located? Oh, that's cool. I was there, blah. And then we had, at the end of the call, we kind of sit and talk again. I'm trying to think of some of the other celebrities who Allison Janney, when she was on Mom, she was great. We'd do emails back and forth, but there was one day when I have a minute and a half, they're telling me? Shit. Okay. There was one time when Allison, we were taping a segment for the radio show. This is several years ago. And we're just chatting. The people are at the landscape company is there doing stuff in her yard, and she's just chatting away in her car. And then at one point, I think we're like 20 minutes into the phone call, she's like, okay, so what are we doing? We're doing an interview. What's happening, Jeremy? What are we doing? And those are just the fun moments, and so. But again, all of that audio will never hear the light of day, just because that would be uncool. You don't do that. You don't release the. Now, admittedly, these people are calling into a radio show at the time, right? So it stands to reason the call is going to be recorded at any point, but. You just don't want to do that, right? You don't want to burn those bridges, or lose those relationships, because some of these people are really fantastic. They're really incredible people. So, anyway, watch Joe Millionaire on Fox Thursday nights, and the Joe Rogan thing on Spot. That's up to you. I'm not telling you what you should or shouldn't do on that one. But anyway, I'd love to know your thoughts. If you're watching the show, if you're listening to Joe as well, send me an email, live@jbonair.com, live@jbonair.com. And very quickly, congrats to all the Olympians. I know this is a crazy Winter Games in China, but it's fascinating to see everybody excelling in their sports. It really is. My name is Jeremy Bradley. This is The Scribble. Talk to you next time. Bye-bye for now.
Want more Scribble? Check out thescribbleshow.com for past shows, celebrity interviews, cheapskate tips, and more. That's at thescribbleshow.com and on Twitter at The Scribble Show. The Scribble is a speak-free media presentation.
If you want some real heat